Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are traveling to Europe to talk about Romanesque architecture. This architectural style emerged in the 10th century and continued to be used until the 12th century, so almost 2 full centuries. But what exactly is Romanesque? What are its main characteristics? And most importantly, what are some of the best examples of this style throughout Europe? These are just some of the questions we will answer today, so make sure to watch the video until the end, so you don't miss any of our picks. Also, at the end of the video, we invite you to tell us in the comments below if there is any other architectural style you would like us to talk about. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more videos about art, architecture, and travel. And now let's get started with Romanesque architecture. It was an architectural style that replaced the Carolingian and Ottonian architecture after the Middle Ages and before the Gothic style. The term Romanesque comes from the idea that this type of construction revived Roman building techniques, such as the use of the arch, vault, and the dome. However, it didn't strictly copy Roman architecture, but rather adapted these elements to the new constructive technologies and adapted them to the needs of the Christian world. In fact, Romanesque architecture developed in parallel with Byzantine architecture during the early medieval period. It was heavily influenced by Central and Eastern European cultures, particularly from the Slavic peoples. As previously mentioned, it succeeded Carolingian architecture, which was mainly focused on the development of the basilica, that is the church with 3 naves and a rectangular floor plan. At the same time, they inherited the constructive principles of Romanesque architecture, such as the use of the arch, vaults, and domes. But what really characterizes Romanesque architecture is the use of the rounded arch. This element can be seen not only in windows and portals, but also in the constructive structure of buildings. That is to say, the entire structure is based on this element, unlike the pointed arch that was used in Gothic architecture. Other elements often used in Romanesque architecture include the use of semicircular arches, horseshoe arches, and the trefoiled arch. Sometimes these elements can all be seen in the same building. It should be noted that one of the main features of Romanesque architecture is that it has no large stained glass windows or large areas of empty space. In this sense, massive walls were preferred, something that would later change in Gothic architecture. Also, because of its preference for massive, thick walls. Romanesque architecture was built using large amounts of stone, brick, or even wood. But it's not just the exterior that defines this style. The interior of Romanesque buildings is also very important. Therefore, another feature of this style is the use of the barrel vault and the groin vault, that is to say, ceilings with a series of intersecting vaults, which allowed them to distribute weight more efficiently throughout the structure. Another element often used in this style of architecture is the dome, as well as the use of pillars and columns. This allowed Romanesque interiors to have greater height, although they never reached the heights achieved in Gothic cathedrals. And finally, the last major feature of Romanesque architecture is the use of decorative elements both inside and outside the building, such as the zigzag pattern and geometric and floral motifs. Often, these motifs could be found carved in capitals, although figurative sculpture was also sometimes used. Now that we know the main features of Romanesque architecture, let's see some of its most outstanding works. One of the best examples of Romanesque architecture is the Church of Santa Maria Osanta in the Italian village of Torcello. The construction of this temple began around 997 and was completed between 1063 and 1068. Its architects were unknown. However, it was likely built by architects and builders from the Byzantine Empire. Its facade presents a beautiful bronze door with 18 semicircular arches resting on columns with Byzantine-style capitals. Above the main entrance, there is a lunette with a fresco of the Virgin Mary enthroned, holding the Christ child, painted by the Venetian painter Jacopo Vescovio. Inside, the building consists of a single nave covered by a barrel vault, with double series of large rectangular windows alternated with exquisite marble. On either side of the apse are two Romanesque-style pulpits made of marble. Both are dated between the 8th and 10th centuries. These were part of the original church built in the 7th century, and were reused when the new church was built in the 11th century. The pulpit on the right belonged to the original church. The pulpit on the left was probably salvaged from a building destroyed during the conquest of Crema by the Byzantines in 997. Both pulpits are a good example of pre-Romanesque architecture. The Duomo di Modena is one of the most important examples of Romanesque architecture in Italy. Construction began in 1099 and was completed in 1125. The architect was likely Lamberto Diada. This cathedral was built using white and red marble from nearby quarries. Its design follows the classic basilica style, but with a unique addition of a large atrium that serves as a facade. On the upper level, there is a series of 5 arches supported by 2 columns and 2 pilasters. The arches frame 3 rose windows with a central oculus. Below this level is a 2-story portico with pointed arches supported by columns and decorated with sculptures. The upper level contains 7 figures representing the virtues. Between them are angels playing musical instruments. The lower level has 14 statues depicting Old Testament prophets and Sibyls. The prophet Isaiah is believed to be the work of the famous Italian sculptor Guglielmo. Moving on to France, let's look at the Abbey of Saint Denis, just north of Paris. It was here that the kings of France were buried for over 700 years. The current building dates mostly from the 11th and 12th centuries. However, it also has elements from the 18th and 19th centuries. The original Benedictine abbey was founded around 925 by Abbot Suzia, who initiated the construction of the current building. Later, in 1136, Abbot Samson took over construction and brought in a group of architects and sculptors from the Isle de France region, including the famous William of Sens. Construction continued until 1144, when Abbot Suzia died. Construction resumed after 150 years and continued until 1220. When construction stopped due to lack of funds. Of all the Romanesque churches in France, that of Saint Denis is considered the most beautiful and influential in the development of Gothic architecture. Its three portals are the most famous examples of French Romanesque sculpture. The portals contain biblical scenes and are richly decorated with floral and zoomorphic motifs. Finally, we went to England to talk about one of the best examples of Romanesque architecture there. It is the Tower of London, originally known as the White Tower. Construction began in 1066 by William the Conqueror, shortly after his victory at the Battle of Hastings. The tower was built as part of a larger project to rebuild London. The old wooden wall was replaced by a new stone wall with several towers. The fortress was built using blocks of stone taken from the ruins of the old London Wall. Initially, the Tower of London was surrounded by a deep ditch, a portcullis and a double wall, but all of these defences were destroyed or fell into disuse. Over the centuries, the tower was used as a residence for royalty, a prison, and a mint. It also housed the crown jewels of England for over 600 years. Today, the tower is open to the public as a museum. Visitors can explore its grounds, including the White Tower, the second largest of the original towers. As we have already told you, Romanesque architecture was a precursor to Gothic architecture. In fact, many of the elements that characterize Romanesque architecture can still be seen in modern buildings today. We hope you enjoyed learning a little more about this architectural style. If you want to learn more about architecture, art, and travel, subscribe to the channel and leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thanks for watching.